Good morning, parents, and welcome to our response to intervention overview. A special thanks needs to go out to Dr. Castleberry for providing coverage so that we can come and talk to you today about RTI. First and foremost, we want to thank you, the parents, by expressing your concerns and understanding the RTI process. It is very evident to us that you want to do everything you possibly can to ensure that your child is successful in their learning, and that involves you being aware of what's happening here at school. Let's begin with a simple explanation of RTI. First of all, the abbreviation means response to intervention. That's what it stands for. And it's basically a process that involves documenting student performance as we go along through the classroom. So first, the teachers focus on teaching the students, which is obviously what should be happening in the classroom. And then after the teaching has happened, and that's when we have to check in on the progress. We have to check in and see how the learners are responding to the instruction in the classroom. And then from there, if we find concerns in their progress, we need to continue with that instruction in the classroom, just with the basic differentiation that's already happening. But if we do happen to find a deficit, a student will begin interventions. And once those interventions start, and an intervention, for those of you that may not know, is just a time where the students go and they get a specific strategy that's research-based that will help them, and it's proven to help them make gains if they are able to. So at that point, we're going to refer them to have an intervention. And once the intervention is happening, we collect more data, and we're recording all of this data to be able to know if the student is going to need more services or not. So at that point, if there are still deficits found in the student's progress, we will then refer them for evaluation for special education services, where they would get more in-depth help and go through more testing to figure out what their learning disability is. So now many of you may be asking the big question, why? Why do we have RTI? Isn't this what teachers should already be doing in their classroom anyway? You are correct when you say that this is what teachers should already be doing. But the key here is that it's finding the difference. So the RTI process makes everyone aware of that next step in the student's learning. So when we can teach and identify a weakness or identify an area where the student struggles, and we're able to intervene and help them early on, then at that point, that intervention should help them make the progress that they need. And when it doesn't, that's where RTI comes into play. That's where RTI is important, and it helps the students really get what they need from their education and from their teachers. So another reason why RTI is so important at our school is that based on educational research that has been conducted recently, response to intervention falls in the top 3 most effective strategies. I think this alone is evidence enough to prove the importance of RTI. Again, we can't thank you enough for reaching out to us, and we hope that what we will share with you today can help you better understand this process and use it in return to help your child.
Now that Katie has explained what RTI is, we are going to look at how the process works. At Whitlow, we start the beginning of the school year with universal screening. We test all students in reading and math to identify students who are at risk of not meeting grade level standards. The students who are shown to be at risk may be moved up a tier in order to get an intervention. This process is done within the first week of school in order to get support started for the students in need. We also do another universal screening in January when we return from break. This allows us to check in halfway through the year to see that we are supporting the students in need. At this time, a student can be added to an intervention group, or they can be removed from one if they are making adequate progress. In Georgia, a 4-tier RTI model has been adopted for early intervention and to determine the student's response as required by Georgia Exceptional Student Regulations. Students receive instruction based on their needs and may move within the pyramid as data supports. As you can see in the pyramid, all students begin in Tier 1. This tier is the general ed classroom where students receive differentiated instruction on their grade level standards. Teachers use research-based strategies to meet the needs of all students, including small groups, to target different skills and learning styles. Once a student has shown a deficit, they will be moved up to Tier 2. In Tier 2, students will receive a research-based intervention program for 30 minutes a day. This program will be given to your child during our intervention time, known as HOWL at Whitlow. During this time, all students in the building are able to work on a subject that they need help with, so your child will not miss any of their class time or be pulled out of their class. While students are in Tier 2 and receiving this extra support, they are also still in Tier 1 and getting the research-based strategies in their classroom with their teacher as well. So the tiers build upon each other. If a student in Tier 2 is continuing to struggle and not show improvements, then they will be moved up to Tier 3. In Tier 3, another level of intervention is added. This means that your child would get the intervention from their classroom teacher in Tier 1, the 30 minutes of intervention during our HOW time for Tier 2, plus they will be pulled for another 30 to 45-minute small group during their class. This will be another research-based program that they will receive as additional support. In Tier 3, there is also something we call a student support team, which is made up of the teachers and you as a parent. You will meet with the teacher about every 6 to 8 weeks to discuss their students' progress and how they are doing with the program, and you will have that chance to give input on what's happening at home and any questions you may have. If a student is continuing to not make adequate progress after 3 levels of support, they may be referred for an evaluation for special education services, ESOL services, or gifted services. In each of these, students are given an individualized program that will support their educational needs. They will have specific goals to work on that would support their needs. They may also be given accommodations and support to help in the general ed classroom. As you can see in the picture, there are a bunch of words that describe RTI. The 2 that stand out the most are monitoring and progress. One of the most important parts of the RTI process is monitoring the students' progress. The whole goal of the program is to have students participate in the general ed classroom without extra support and work them back down to Tier 1. So we use these interventions in order to close any gaps that they may have so that they can be successful. Here at Whitlow, we monitor students' progress frequently to ensure they are making gains. How often they are monitored is based upon what tier they are in. Students in Tier 2 are progress monitored once a month by the teacher who is giving them the intervention. They complete a quick test in either reading or math, whichever subject they are receiving the support in. Students in Tier 3 are progress monitored twice a month by the teacher who is giving the intervention. They are watched a little more closely because these students are showing more gaps in their learning. Here's an example of a graph from progress monitoring that shows a student who is making progress. You can see that the blue dots, or data points, are moving in an upward direction. The dotted line is a trend line, or the way we want the data to go. Although there are some points above and below the line, the overall progress of the student is moving in an upward direction, which is what we want to see. This shows that the intervention is working for this student. On the other hand, here is an example of a student who is not making progress. You can see that their dots are basically in a straight line. The last data point on the line is very close to the first data point when they started. This is not what we want to see. This shows that the intervention that this student is in is not helping them make progress.
Now that Carla has explained the tiers of support, I will explain what this looks like for your child here at Whitlow Elementary. The key of RTI is analyzing the data to place students into the correct tier as well as the best HOW group. HOW stands for Helping Our Wolves Learn. Looking back at the tiers of support pyramid, there are research-based interventions in Tier 2, 3, and 4. Let's take a look at each intervention used here at Whitlow. This chart shows each intervention, which I will go more into detail throughout the presentation. Students in Tier 1 receive grade level interventions from the teachers within the grade level, and students who are receiving grade level interventions are above the 25th percentile with the universal screening in reading and math. Several data pieces are examined to determine where students will be placed within the grade level. Here are some examples of data teachers look at. Reading level, Fontes and Pinnell guided reading, ARC, which is used in kindergarten, universal screening, Forsyth County interims, or milestones. Each grade level may use different data to determine their groups. The groups are based on what the students need. As Carla stated, HAL time is for Tier 1 is 30 minutes 5 times a week. Here are examples of grade level or Tier 1 instruction at HAL time or during HAL time. This is an example of a 5th grade HAL spreadsheet. 5th grade used the spring interim scores with the projection of what the students will score roughly on the Georgia milestones to divide the students into groups. Also, 5th grade teachers need to decide what instruction should the child receive, either ELA or math, which is a team decision. Whatever the student scores the lowest in is normally what HAL group the student will go to. The math groups are based on projected milestone scores, where ELA has a mix of low, average, and high students based on their interim scores. Here is another example of how 1st grade divides their students into HAL groups. 1st grade used multiple pieces of data to aid with dividing the students into groups. 1st grade teachers used winter universal screening, Fontes and Pinnell reading levels for December, and classroom data to decide where to place students for quarter 3. As you can see, they have a wide variety of HAL groups. Tier 2 means students are between the 11th percentile and the 25th percentile in reading, math, or both. Tier 2 interventions include MDIS, which is for math, LLI for reading comprehension and fluency, Reading Egg for decoding and basic reading skills. Students are progress monitored once a month to determine if the child is making progress in reading or math with the current intervention. Students who are identified as Tier 2 are also receiving small group instruction from our early intervention teachers. This means more support for your child, and it is also in small group. If students are not making progress with the interventions given in Tier 2, nor with classroom instruction, the team could decide to move your child to Tier 3. This means students are not making progress with the current intervention, or they have fallen below the 10th percentile with universal screening. Students in Tier 3 are receiving small group instruction 5 times a week for 30 minutes a day. Small group will be 8 students or less. Students could be receiving the following interventions: stop and think, read naturally, quick reads, or do the math. Stop and Think is a social skills program used for children with social skill needs or behavioral needs. Read Naturally is a program used for kindergarten through 2nd grades, which builds fluency skills, including becoming a fluent reader and understanding vocabulary. Do the Math builds students' computation skills and number sense. Quick Read supports students' fluency within reading. Tier 4 is program-driven, meaning students are identified as ESOL, gifted, or special education. These students are served by certified teachers in the concentrated area. So, you may be asking yourself, what role do you play in the RTI process as a parent? As with all aspects of education, you play a critical role in the response to intervention process. Strong parent communication procedures in all areas of the school will support open lines of information regarding all teaching and learning initiatives. Parents play a critical role in supporting what their children are learning in school. Research shows that the more parents are involved in student learning, the higher the student achievement. So here's what you can do to help with your child or children at Whitlow. Be involved and proactive in education of your child. Work with your child at home on particular skills identified through the screenings, math, reading, or both. Share your child's successes and request a parent conference to address any concerns that may arise with your child. Thank you, parents, for attending the RTI meeting. It is evident that you are here to support your child's education in every way possible. Does anyone have any questions? If you think of any questions after this meeting, please feel free to contact Katie, Carla, or myself. We will also be posting the PowerPoint on Whitlow's webpage under quick links. Thank you again for attending this meeting.